Hi there, folks. I'm Clara, 75 years young, still kicking it in Lincoln Park, Chicago, where the car horns and the smell of coffee from the shop downstairs fight to wake me up every morning. I live on the third floor of an old walk-up building. No elevator, mind you, so climbing those stairs is my free cardio workout I never signed up for. I've been here 20 years, watching this city go from the days you could grab a sandwich for $2, ham and cheese, nice and greasy, to now, when even the air feels like it's got a tax on it. My neighbor, Mrs. Rossi, swears the pigeons outside her window are charging rent these days. But today, I'm not here to grumble about prices or my creaky knees, though trust me, I could talk your ear off about both, and probably throw in a story about the time I tripped over a pothole on North Avenue. No, I want to ask you something I bet you've never stopped to ponder. Are you secretly damaging your health without even knowing it? I know what you're thinking. Clara, I'm old. Stuff happens. What's the big deal? I was right there with you until I had a chat with Dr. Emma Harris, a geriatric specialist who's been at it for over 30 years. She looks fitter than me, and I'm pretty sure she's not huffing upstairs daily or dodging Chicago wind that feels like a slap in the face. She told me something that flipped my whole view upside down. Some folks stay sharp and spry into their 80s and 90s, like my old pal Joe, who still dances at the senior center like he's auditioning for a musical, while others, like me on a bad day, just want to flop on the couch, exhausted, wondering where all my energy went. And it's not always luck or good genes. It's often the little things we do or don't do every day. So today I'm spilling the beans on 5 body parts. Most of us, especially us older folks, aren't taken care of right. Don't worry, I'm not about to tell you to spend hours in the bathroom or buy some pricey gizmo I'd probably lose under my sink anyway. These are simple tricks, a few minutes a day, that might just keep you feeling better, and maybe even stick around longer to nag your grandkids a bit more, or in my case, argue with Mrs. Rossi about who gets the last donut at the coffee klatch. Sound good? Grab a seat, pour yourself a tea or coffee if you're like me and need that jolt to tackle these stairs. And let's dive in. First up, let's talk about your tongue, that little muscle we use to eat, chat, and taste our way through life. I'd bet most of you just brush your teeth, swish some mouthwash, and call it a day. Maybe even skip the mouthwash if you're running late, like I do when the bus is honking outside. I was the same way until Dr. Emma pointed out that our tongues are like a carpet crawling with bacteria. Over 700 different kinds, according to the latest studies. And not all of them are friendly house guests. If you don't clean it right, the nasty ones can sneak into your bloodstream through your gums, especially if they're a little tender like mine after years of chewing tough Chicago-style pizza crusts, stirring up chronic inflammation, even linking to heart disease or diabetes trouble, stuff we don't need at our age. I had a friend, Linda, 67, who was always griping about bad breath, even though she brushed like a champ and carried mints everywhere. She'd pop one in her mouth every time we met at the diner saying, "Clara, I don't get it. I'm a walking toothpaste ad." Turns out her tongue was the culprit. She hadn't cleaned it since the Nixon administration, or so I teased her. So here's the fix. It's easy and you don't need a dental degree. Get yourself a tongue scraper. Costs a couple bucks at the drugstore, cheaper than my morning coffee and way less than the $5 lattes they're peddling downstairs now. Every morning before you eat, gently scrape from back to front 3 or 4 times. You'll see a white or yellow film come off. That's the bacteria you don't want hanging around, like the fuzz on that old sweater you keep meaning to toss. Rinse with water or an antibacterial mouthwash. I use the cheap stuff, works just fine. At night, go lighter before bed, since your tongue's more sensitive after a day of yelling at the grandkids or, in my case, arguing with the mailman about lost packages. I started this a few months back after Linda dared me to try it, and let me tell you, food tastes alive again. My coffee's got that kick I'd forgotten. My breath's fresher. Mrs. Rossi even noticed, said I don't smell like garlic bread anymore, and I feel perkier, like I could tackle those stairs without cursing halfway up. 3 minutes a day, worth a shot, right? Next, your feet, the unsung heroes that haul us around every day. By our age, they're not as spry as they were at 20. Mine remind me of that every time I shuffle to the corner store for milk, but they still work hard, lugging us through grocery runs, standing while we cook, or just pacing the apartment when the Cubs blow another game. Dr. Emma says feet are like a house's foundation. If they're shaky, the whole body feels it, from your knees to your back. I used to think a quick rinse in the shower was plenty, maybe a scrub if I'd stepped in something funky on Clark Street, but nope. If you don't clean them right, especially between the toes, bacteria and fungi can set up shop, leading to infections. Extra bad if you've got diabetes or slow circulation, which isn't rare for us. My buddy Thomas, 73, learned this the hard way. He lives 2 blocks over, and last summer he got a fungal infection between his toes just because he didn't dry them properly after a shower. He told me over coffee, "Clara, I thought the smell was my old sneakers. Turns out it was me." His doc said it could have spread and gotten painful if he'd ignored it. He even had to toss those sneakers anyway, poor guy. Then there's my downstairs neighbor, Mr. Patel, 80, who swears he nearly fell down his stairs because his feet got so sore from neglecting them. He just soap the tops and call it quits. Here's what I do now. Every day, I sit on a little stool in the bathroom, got it for $5 at a yard sale, grab a soft cloth and mild soap, and wash every inch, tops, soles, between the toes, like I'm polishing my old boots. Then I dry them thoroughly. Don't leave them damp. That's a fungus party waiting to happen, and I'm not hosting that. I finish with a dab of moisturizer on the soles. Steal it from my granddaughter's stash when she visits, but skip between the toes to keep it dry. Since I started, my feet don't ache as much when I walk to the bus stop, and I feel steadier on these old legs. Haven't tripped over a curb in months. Give it a try. Don't wait for your feet to start complaining louder than I do about the weather. Then there's your armpits. Yep, those sweaty spots we think a swipe of deodorant can fix, or in my case, a spritz of whatever's on sale at Walgreens. But here's the thing. Your underarms aren't just about sweat. They've got over 20 lymph nodes working to flush toxins and keep your immune system humming like little janitors sweeping up the mess. If you let sweat, dead skin, or deodorant gunk build up, it can cause inflammation, even weaken your defenses. Nobody wants that when flu season hits Chicago like a freight train. I saw it with Olivia, 65, from my book club. She dealt with red, itchy rashes under her arms for years, thinking it was just old age or maybe too much time shoveling snow. She'd show up to our meetings fanning herself, saying, "Clara, I'm a mess." Nope, she wasn't washing them right. She was just piling on more deodorant like it was frosting on a cake. Now I do this. In the shower, I use a soft cloth and unscented soap. None of that floral junk that makes me sneeze. Gently scrubbing in circles, then up and down to get all the grime, like I'm cleaning a window that hasn't seen a rag in years. Rinse well, don't leave soap behind or it'll itch worse than a mosquito bite. Pat dry with a soft towel. Got a stack of old ones from my daughter's move out. Let them air out a minute before deodorant while I sip my coffee. Since I started, No more itch, no funky smell, and I feel lighter, like my body's breathing better, not just panting up those stairs. I even caught Mrs. Rossi sniffing the air the other day, saying, "Clara, you're fancy now. You older folks like me, give it a go. It's a small thing that helps more than you'd think, especially when winter dries us out like old bread. Don't sleep on your nose either. It's the natural air filter we take for granted, and trust me, in Chicago, with all the wind and pollen blowing off Lake Michigan, it's working overtime. We breathe 20,000 times a day, at least I do, chasing the bus half the time. But if your nose is clogged with dust, pollen, or mucus, the air hitting your lungs isn't clean, and you end up tired, sleeping poorly, or catching colds left and right. My friend James, 69, was always stuffed up, figuring it was just age or the construction dust he breathed back in his working days. He'd snore so loud I could hear him through the wall some nights. Sounded like a train rattling by. But once he started cleaning his nose, everything changed. He told me over a beer at the pub, "Clara, I haven't slept this good since the 80s." Here's my routine. Every morning I use a saline spray, cheap at the drugstore, couple bucks, to rinse out overnight gunk, like giving my nose a quick shower after a dusty day. If it's bad, like after a windy spell that kicks up every leaf in Lincoln Park, I use a neti pot with warm saline, pouring it gently through, like airing out a stuffy room. Takes about a minute. Sometimes I steam my face over a bowl of hot water with a drop of peppermint oil. Smells like candy canes. Feels like a treat after dodging exhaust fumes on the street. Now, I sleep through the night, no more waking up clogged, and my head's clearer. I even beat James at cards last week, and he can't blame the sniffles anymore. You've got to try it. Breathing right makes a world of difference, especially when the grandkids drag you out to the park. Last but not least, your belly button. Sounds silly, but hear me out, because I've got a story for this one too. At our age, skin dries out, and that little nook can trap sweat and dead skin, causing smells or irritation, like a forgotten corner of the fridge. My friend Jane, 78, kept wondering, "Clara, why's my belly got this weird smell?" She'd lean over at our coffee meetup, whispering like it was a big secret, and I'd tease, "Jane, did you spill soup down there?" She'd never cleaned it properly, thought a shower would magically do the trick. Then there's my upstairs neighbor, Tony, 71, who laughed when I brought this up, saying, "Clara, who's got time for that?" 2 weeks later, he admitted he'd found lint in there from an old sweater. Looked like a tiny tumbleweed. Here's what I do. In the shower, I take a damp cloth with a bit of mild soap. Same stuff I use on my face. Gently wipe around the navel, rinse it clean, and dry it well with a corner of my towel. If it's red or smelly too long, I'd see a doc. Especially if you've got diabetes like Tony. Be extra careful because little things can turn big fast. Since I started, I feel fresher. No more mystery whiffs when I'm lounging in my robe. And my skin down, they're smoother, like I'm 74 again. Jane tried it after I nagged her, and she called me last week, giggling, "Clara, I'm a new woman." It's a tiny thing, but it works wonders, keeps you from being the smelly one at bingo night. So there you have it, folks. 5 little spots we overlook. Your tongue, feet, armpits, nose, and belly button. A few minutes a day can cut infections, help you sleep better, and keep you feeling fresh. Like you could dance with Joe or outlast Mrs. Rossi in a donut debate. I'm no doctor, but at 75, I've seen these tweaks make me stronger. Less huffing on those stairs, more pep in my step. And I want that for you too. Pick one to try today, maybe the tongue trick, so your coffee tastes like it should, or the foot fix, so you don't wince at every step. then tell me how it goes, all right? Share this podcast with a friend if you think they'd get a kick out of it. Maybe someone who needs a nudge to ditch the couch. Thanks for hanging out with me. Stay healthy, and I'll catch you next time.